Hey guys, and welcome back to The Podcaster's Journey. My name is Caleb Stock, and I am your host and your guide in this journey of helping you create a podcast and build a podcast that's going to cut through the noise and help you connect with the people that you want to listen to. This podcast is just an open diary and a journal, a lot of times of me and the journey that I'm on as I'm learning more about podcasting, and I'm just here to share that with you guys and pass along the knowledge because I want to help people and I want to see people succeed. So thank you for being here. Today, we are talking about how to start a podcast on a budget. If you have been wanting to start a podcast, but you're like, I just don't have the studio for it, I don't have the equipment for it, then this episode is for you, okay? By the end of this episode, we're going to have actionable steps that you can take. One of the benefits of today's episode is I put together a little package or dream package of different price tiers of software, of equipment, different things like that I would recommend for your podcast studio and where you're at. The biggest takeaway though, guys, is we don't need a lot to get going. That's what I want you to take away. That is in a nutshell. I'm going to start with that. And I hope that's what you take away. So let's dive in. Let's get into the main content. There's a myth around podcasting that maybe you've experienced that, and a lot of people starting out, feel like you have to have a really professional environment to make your podcast to start, to get going. You need thousands of dollars to invest in your studio, to have something that looks really good, to have something that sounds really good, and to have all these technical skills. Guys, the reality of it is you can get started with hardly anything, okay? Just with the essentials, the bare essentials, and upgrade them as you grow and as you go. There's no need to have it all from day one. I think this goes back to a previous episode where you're trying to have everything figured out before you get going. Just know that it's enough where you're at right now, and that it's a journey. Just get started. Honestly, that is the key. Just get started, get going. I've been there. I still battle on a regular basis. In the music world, or in the music production world, we call it GAS. It's an acronym, Gear Acquisition Syndrome. And it's this procrastination where you feel like you'll do better, you'll be better, things will happen better for you, get better results if you spend more money on your gear or on plugins or on tools. But the reality is those are only as good as the person operating them. My camera, my mic, my editing software, the lights, the studio, they're only as good as the person who is behind them using them. They're only as good as the skills that I actually bring to the content that I'm speaking on right now. So it doesn't matter if I could go sit in Joe Rogan's podcast studio or some other famous podcaster and have all the best top tier stuff. And I might not get the same results as far as having people engage with my podcast. And the reason is because it's about the content. All that other stuff is just the cherry on top. People are here to hear your content. So just get started. Yes, do your best to make it sound professional, but grow as you go and let things happen, okay? Your content is what matters. Start small, show up consistently, and grow as you go, okay? All right. So let's talk about gear and tools and how we can get the affordable gear that we need to make professional sounding results, okay? So what do you truly need to get started with your podcast? If you're doing a video podcast like this, you need some kind of video camera, obviously. And if you've got a newer iPhone or a newer Android device, chances are you already have a great camera built in to your phone that's going to be great to capture your audio. Okay, great. So we've got the video marked off. What do we need for audio? So for audio, we just need a basic microphone. And if you have an iPhone or an Android that has a USB-C port on it, I don't know what models. I know Android, I think, had USB-C a little earlier than iPhone. But if you have that, you can get a microphone similar to this one that's only $50 that has USB-C out, and then it would plug directly into your phone. And you could download like the Blackmagic camera app, or if you're on Apple, the Apple Final Cut Pro camera for iPhone. You could download one of those too, and it's going to allow you a little more settings than just your basic camera app, where you're able to actually use your microphone. And that's actually what I'm doing right now. I'm going out of this microphone into my audio interface, and the audio interface is going directly into my phone. That's a little more involved than the setup that I'm proposing for you guys, but you could buy the brother of this microphone that is literally USB-C out, and instead of going in this mic cable to my audio interface to convert that so that it can sync up with the audio, we could just go directly out of here into the phone. That's an option, and it's only $50 to pick one of these things up. I've worked with clients for the last couple of years with these microphones, and I think they sound great. You just got to figure out how to work with them, figure out how to get your EQ curves. You're going to be good to go. You can get great sound out of these microphones. So don't feel like you have to wait to buy a $400 or $500 microphone. Sure, the Shure SM7B is the king or standard of podcasting. Does it sound great? Yeah, it sounds amazing. Do you need it to get started? No, absolutely not. You can get started at a fraction of the price, almost 10% of that cost, just to pick up a microphone and get going. Okay? Learn your tools, learn how to use them, and just get going. Don't let it hold you back, because at the end of the day, content is king. The reason people are here is because of the stories you're telling and all that sort of stuff. And you're slowing yourself down by not making those stories happen if you're waiting to get the right gear. Okay. So just get out there, get your content, and get rolling. Okay. If you're on a super budget, your smartphone has a built-in microphone that works great. Okay. And you could position it, get a little stand for it, and you could position it like my microphone is, just a little bit off to the side. And just use, like if you're on iPhone, use a voice memo app to record that. It's gonna be good enough, man. Or if you've got the basic headphones that used to come with iPhones, you can just use those and hold that microphone up to your mouth, or even just kind of let it be down a little bit and be in a quiet room. You're gonna get good enough quality, professional, even if you know what you're doing with your editing and beefing it up with some EQ and compression. It's gonna sound great, and a lot of people aren't gonna know the difference. So just get started and grow as you go. Okay. There's other options if you want to spend more money. If you want a basic setup, the Shure MV7 Plus is around $280. One of my podcasting clients who's been podcasting for a little over a year now just picked that up. It adds some neat flair for his podcast. It's got a light built into it that can kind of match the colors of the color scheme of his podcast brand. And it sounds good. He's enjoying it, but you don't need that to start out. Okay. If you have the money and you have the budget and you want to get one, I could recommend that one. But again, if you're looking for something affordable to get going and you don't have any microphones, but you have a little bit of money you want to invest, maybe $100, then I could recommend the Zoom ZUM 2. It's the brother of this microphone it's just a USB interface. Or there's the Audio-Technica ATR 2100X, which is also a USB microphone. If you want to do some research and find some other microphones, what you're going to want to look for is a cardioid dynamic microphone. Okay. And they work good for podcasting, and that's what you're going to want to look for. So again, look for a cardioid dynamic USB microphone. And you should be able to find some for around $50. There are some on Amazon that are cheaper. I think I've seen some for $20 or $30. I haven't tested them myself. You might be able to get a good sound out of them, but chances are if you're going under $40 or $50, I don't know. With the way technology is, you might find a good deal. You might find a good one, but I would be leery. Anything under $40, $50 might be a stretch. Okay. So, if you want some headphones to monitor yourself, so let me back up. We've talked about video and how we could capture some video. We've talked about audio and how we could capture some audio. We've talked about a couple different ways. We've talked about a free version using just your phone or iPhone headphones. If you've got those, we've talked about a budget option, which is a $50 microphone that can plug directly into your phone and capture. And then we've talked about maybe a step up with the Shure MV7 Plus. So let's talk about monitoring. This is by no means necessary or required. But if you wanted to hear how your voice is sounding and monitor to make sure you're not clipping, make sure that your audio is sounding good on the way in, you could get some headphones. Right now I'm using my in-ears. I'm a musician and I've got those laying around. I just like how they're a little more sleek than your kind of traditional headphones. But if you wanted to use headphones, I could recommend the Audio-Technica, the ATH M20X. These are good headphones. I use them in my teaching studio as well. So I've got 3 pairs of these. They're all fantastic. Good audio quality. They cup around the ears, so they're not noise canceling, but they do block out a fair bit of noise so that you can really focus on what you're doing. So there you have it. We've got video, we've got audio, and we've got monitoring. The only other thing that I would recommend is a basic pop filter, which is this foam piece that goes over the microphone here. That is just to kind of catch any plosives. And you can think of plosives as words that start with P or B, those kind of words that there's just a lot of explosive air. So these kind of help cut some of that out. Another way you can cut those out, you're going to want to have this regardless as kind of a fail-safe. But another way, pro tip for today, is your mic positioning. You might notice that my microphone is a little bit off to the side of my mouth and it's pointed directly at my mouth, and I'm not speaking directly in. You can get a pretty good sound this way, but you might notice if I say the word B or B, it just has kind of a pop to it. But if I do it out here, B, you don't have near as much of that uncomfortable plosive sound. So that's a pro tip for you when you're setting up your microphone, whatever kind you go, even if it's your iPhone and you're just pointing the microphone at yourself, point it off to the side a little bit. It's going to get you just a little bit cleaner sound and tone. All right, so let's roll on here. That's kind of some affordable gear that you can get going. Let's talk about affordable software, because you might go down the rabbit hole of what do I use to edit it after I've got it all captured. What do I use? What's the industry standard? And the truth of the matter is, guys, if you're in, regardless of what ecosystem you're in, the Apple or Windows, there's some pretty good affordable options. If you're in the Mac world, GarageBand is a great option. I have one friend who's done a podcast and he's done some editing in there, and you're not going to be able to know the difference. GarageBand has all the tools you need. It's got EQ and compression. Really, that's all you need to make your podcast sound really professional and create a high quality production. So just jump in there in GarageBand, learn how to use it. There's tons of tutorials online, so use those, figure it out. Or if you need help, reach out to me. Happy to kind of help you walk through how to use GarageBand. Another option would be Audacity. That's I believe you can use Audacity on the Mac or in the Mac world as well. But for sure in the PC world, I'm not as familiar with Audacity. I've never really dove in there, but I've heard good things about it. And both of these are beginner friendly. Both of them have tons of tutorials online. So just jump in there, learn how to use it. You'll be doing great. Okay. Talking about other low-cost software, or maybe not software, but like you're going to need a place to host your podcast as well too. You might be wondering, where do I host it? And a lot of places are going to charge you to host maybe, $8, $10, $15 a month to keep your podcast up on podcast directories. And if you have the budget for that and you want to spend it, you're going to be buying good analytics. You're going to be buying maybe a little bit better service as far as the user interface on the website. But don't let that hold you back. If you need to go cheaper, if you need to go more budget friendly, let's put it that way. I'm not sure I like the word cheap. Cheap just sounds like you're kind of half-ending it. So I don't want to imply that here at all. So if you're going for a more budget-friendly option, you can definitely do, it used to be called Anchor, Spotify for podcasters, I'm really butchering the name right now. Podcasters by Spotify, I think might be what it is now. It's a great option. Your analytics aren't super in-depth, but that's okay. Depending on your goals, that's not my goal right now. My goal is just to get 100 episodes created and published. That's my goal right now. So the analytic part isn't as important for me. I'm still going to be looking at those, but it's not as important. One of my clients right now that I've been working with over the last year, we've been using Anchor for their hosting, and we're coming up on 17,000 downloads in 1 year. And so it's totally a usable place. So don't be afraid of these more budget-friendly softwares. Don't feel like you have to spend, a lot of money to get your money's worth. You can, if you know what you're doing, you can get a lot out of just using some basic software to get you where you're going. All right, last part that we're going to touch on today is your marketing strategies. So in your marketing, you might be thinking, oh man, I'm going to have to spend a ton of money on marketing to get my name out there and to get this podcast out there. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be painful. It can be really easy. Okay. So the first part is just leveraging organic growth, getting on to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and leveraging these platforms. Start by sharing it on your personal social media channels and sharing it with your friends and family, and seeing if it resonates with any of them, and asking them to share it with friends if it resonates with them and if it helps or is something they're interested in. Connect with communities on Facebook. Facebook has tons of groups. So if your podcasting is on, let's say, mountain biking, get on Facebook and find some mountain biking groups and share your podcast in there. Don't go spam the group, obviously. Be a helpful part of the community other than just promoting your show. But if your show can answer a question or benefit the community in some way, share your show in there, in the group on Facebook. If your show talks about sailing, maybe go look for a Facebook group about sailing. Do the same thing. The sky's the limit there, guys, literally. Just find something that aligns with your niche. Engage with your listeners by creating value-based content. So chop up your podcast episodes into, there's a great software called Opus Clip. It's fantastic. If you've not heard of it, I would recommend it. It is like, if you want to use, like, again, if you have the budget, you can spend about, I think it's like 10 or 12 bucks a month, and you can get 2 hours of content. So basically what that means is if your podcast is 30 minutes long, you can upload the whole 30-minute video to Opus Clip. And what it's going to do is it's going to analyze the whole thing with AI, and it's going to pick out its top like 10 or 20 clips of what it thinks would be engaging parts of the conversation that would pull people in. And you just take those clips and you put them on social media, on your Instagram, on your TikTok, on YouTube Shorts. And it's a great way. I know that you guys have seen this. You've seen these on short form social media sites over and over again. And they're there to intrigue people's interest, and it works. Okay. One of my clients for podcasting right now, he's been doing that, and he grew his Instagram page from 0 followers, and in 1 year he's up to like 700 Instagram followers just by posting the thumbnail of his episodes and posting little pieces of his conversations that he's having with people on his podcast. That's literally all he's doing on his Instagram. And he's sharing stories, kind of sharing those either again on his stories or sharing just some behind the scenes, that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't say that his content strategy is all that challenging or would be all that burdensome. Really all it is figuring out when you're going to share and either scheduling that to be shared or logging in and actually sharing those videos. So again, I'd use something like Opus Clip to chop up your videos and then just be sharing those on a consistent and regular basis. Really, guys, this is a game that rewards people who show up regularly and consistently. So leverage that organic growth by showing up consistently. Man, I'm reading my notes and I kind of missed something. I want to back up a little bit here with leveraging your organic growth. And I want you guys to think about this. I don't want you to think about, we've already kind of gone, I've already used the punchline, but I want to back up because I think it's valuable for you guys. What I want you to do is I want you to think about your podcast. Create your content for short form, for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. Create that content second. Create your podcast first. Podcast content is king. Make that. And then from there, what you're going to do is you're going to use that to break down into smaller conversational pieces. Don't worry about trying to figure out what am I going to post on social media. Because like I outlined with this other client, they're not worried about creating all these other little clips to point people at their podcast. All they're doing is creating their podcast, having a fun conversation with somebody or having a good episode, and then they're just clipping that up into fun pieces and sharing that with people. It's literally just sharing what you're already doing. So make it first and then create the content out of what you've already made. There might be a time when you want to make something that have a deeper conversation or pull a specific point out that was in your podcast. By all means, you could write a new script with ChatGPT using your transcript and highlighting a specific spot and build that out. You could totally do that, okay? But the point is we can leverage organic growth a lot. Social media gets kind of a bad rap sometimes, and the algorithm and all this stuff. It's not all that hard to figure out if you're creating the right content and you're doing it in a way that's sustainable and that makes sense for your workflow. So build a good workflow and capitalize on that content that you've already made. Make the workflow make sense. If you need help figuring out how to make your workflow, hit me up. Be happy to share with you ways to make your workflow make sense, because we are making a lot of content as podcasters. Another way that we can leverage marketing for pretty inexpensively would be building a community. So those communities that we were jumping into to talk about our podcast and share, you could start one of those yourself. Bring people in, build your own market, so to speak, your own listener hub, and invite people to join. You need to figure out what kind of listener you want listening to your podcast. And what you're going to do is you're going to just actively go find those kind of people, figure out where they hang out online or in real life, and invite them to your group. Invite them, maybe if it's in real life, have a real conversation about that topic in real life with them. And then at the end say, hey, this was great, man. If you want to ever have more conversations like this online, I've got this Facebook group and would love to have your input. This was a valuable conversation for me, or I really enjoyed this conversation. It was a lot of fun for me. And I would love to continue this kind of conversation in my Facebook group and share it with all the other people in there who love this topic as well. Okay. So, last episode, we talked about authenticity mattering, and this is where it comes in. You get to be authentic in your podcast. You get to be authentic in your group. Just be authentic with people and have a conversation with them, and it's going to naturally grow. Okay. Just remember to be yourself and let that act as the magnet that's going to attract the people in who need to be your listeners. Okay. So I want to share a story here and how powerful this can be from a book that I've been reading. I've been reading a book for a second time called Oversubscribed from an author and entrepreneur called Daniel Priestley. And in the book, he shares a story of walking through a noisy market somewhere overseas, and everybody's just trying to get in his face. And if you've been to a market, or I don't think they really have them here in the States, anywhere, but I've been overseas some places where there's markets like this, where they're just kind of in your face and they're like, here, this is what you need. And they're trying to call you into their shop. And the noise, and Daniel even pointed out in the story that the more they tried to get his attention, the more he kind of tuned him out. And he's walking through this sea of faces, and pretty soon he sees a friend, And he like zeroed in on that guy, and he's like, yes. And he got a smile. And so he went over and he talked to his friend. This friend and him had done some business before. So they ended up going and getting lunch, and they did more business together. So all that to say, as you're trying to walk through this crowded market of podcasters, don't be afraid to be a friendly face for people. Build that community and be a place where people feel comfortable having a conversation with you. They want to have a conversation with you. That's going to be so much more effective than just trying to create noise. So when you're creating the content that we were talking about in the previous step, from your podcast, make sure that it's actionable, that it's valuable, that it's going to be beneficial to people, and that they're going to see it as a friend, not as just like a bunch of people in the marketplace shouting at them. Okay. All right. Last part is planning your budget. Before you start spending a single dollar for your podcast, I want you to just set a budget and stick to it. Again, it doesn't matter what that number is. If it's $100, if it's $50, if it's $500 or $1,000 or maybe $5,000. I don't know your financial situation, but pick a number, stick with it, go get the gear you need, and get going. If you don't need any gear and you've got enough, maybe you're on that... I'm thinking about what I'm saying. I don't know. If you've got the gear to make it happen, just make it happen and grow your show as it goes with your budget, okay? This gives you the clarity and prevents unnecessary purchases that you don't need to make up front and getting bogged down in those kind of decisions. Buy what you absolutely need to get started and get going for the first 10 to 20 episodes, and then reevaluate and figure out what you could maybe spend or continue. Because again, it's more about you speaking into it and getting that practice than the actual gear that you're using, okay? Once you've started, you can also think about monetizing, okay? There's different ways to monetize, but essentially, as you're getting going, I wouldn't think of this as a money-making thing. I would think of this as a way to promote either your brand or your product or content that you're making as like maybe a social media celebrity or something like that. So there's different ways you could do affiliate marketing. You could do Patreons to set up to kind of help gradually fund different things. So I would think about those kinds of things, but again, right now I wouldn't be thinking so much about the monetization. I would be thinking about creating good content, okay? So, as a recap for today, just remember that you don't need to invest a lot to get going. It doesn't cost thousands of dollars. Really what matters is your content and getting started. So if you don't have any gear and you need some, check out the resource below to figure out what kind of gear and software and resources you need to get going. But I just want to encourage you guys to take the first step and get going. Today, your challenge is to just make the budget for your podcast and get going, to take that first step, okay? I'm so excited for you guys, and I can't wait to hear what you create. Feel free to share it with me over in my Facebook group or hit me up on Instagram. And until next time, happy podcasting.